Hello, welcome. We're going to look at a brand new chapter of Ecclesiastes today. We are definitely moving into the home stretch. There are 12 chapters in Ecclesiastes, and today we start chapter 10, and it's going to be a bit of a different chapter. A few words of commentary here at the very beginning. Have you found Ecclesiastes at times very heavy? I have. It's a wonderful book, gotten so much out of it. But at times, it's just dealing with such difficult topics of life. And this chapter is a little bit different. And so it's a little departure of where we've been. It's still definitely dealing with some serious topics. But I thought about it for a while. I was actually stuck for a while reading the chapter thinking, it seems like things are a bit, I'm not sure how they link together. And then it came to me, really what we have here are a series of Proverbs. And it's probably going to be a couple of messages. This will be part one about Proverbs. So I'm not going to even review anything from the previous chapters. This is going to be kind of standalone. And while definitely speaking some truth of life to us, it'll be slightly lighter. Some things we might even laugh at. And so let's just jump in, and I want to actually talk about a little reflection on what a proverb is. So it's often meant to be a very short, simple statement. This isn't some long book, chapter, or even a paragraph. It's more like a phrase or two. Yet it can be profound, and it can be quoted. It's something that even today we can have these phrases or ideas that enter our own lexicon. And so it says something to us about life, and it speaks to us, but it's often kind of can even be in a picture. In fact, I'm going to use some pictures today as part of the storytelling. And while there's the humor, and while they can be simple, they can convey very deep truths. And so just to open things up, I was doing a little research on this, and if we go back a little ways, somebody who had some proverbs in America, somebody we all know, is Benjamin Franklin. He was probably one of our most well-known people for making kind of these proverbial statements. So I thought I'd share a couple of his. And he had many. You can find a whole book out there on his proverbs. The sting of a reproach is the truth of it. Now, again, look how simple that is. But then if you start to think about it, you're like, yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. Or beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. Again, a picture you can almost see. And think of a mighty ship, but it has a little leak, but it's destroyed because of it. Or here's one that can be kind of funny, but also very truthful. He that lies down with dogs shall rise up with fleas. I could go on with more of those. Now, that's just to introduce the idea of a proverb. Now, I'm sure many of you know the Bible has an entire book which is nothing but Proverbs. But there are Proverbs in other places in the Bible, and I believe in this section, I think we've had a few previously here in Ecclesiastes, but I think this section is really a chapter of Proverbs here in Ecclesiastes. So that just kind of sets what we're going to be going into next. So let's look at some of them. Think about this picture. Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench. So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. So think about this. Think of a person just sweaty, has gone for a long time without bathing or showers. Or think of a pile of garbage, but you try to spray a little perfume on it. Is that really going to work? So we think about the danger of folly. You could try to put a little perfume on it, but it's still going to stink. It's something that tells us, it's like when we think in the end that our good works will outweigh our bad, it just doesn't work that way. Our sin stinks, and our good works are no perfume to make it better. So it gives us a picture of our behavior and the consequences of our action. I thought for a while about this verse too, and these are all they're kind of related, but they're kind of standalone. A wise man's heart inclines him to the right, but a fool's heart to the left. Now, these are about the paths that we face in life. And particularly in that time, it was regarded that strength was in the right hand. Most people are right-handed. And that when you go to the left, it's kind of a picture of choosing the wrong path. So it's thinking about, we want to make the right choices. We want to stay to the right and not the left. I like this one. Even when the fool walks on the road, he lacks sense. And he says to everyone that he is a fool. Now, if we were to look at this picture, found a picture of a clown walking down the road. Now, does he need a megaphone to say, hey, guess what, I'm a clown? No, he conveys to everyone what he is. And when our actions are wrong, and we've known people like this in life, their actions announce who they are. They see him on the road. You think of yourself like, I'm not dressed in such an outfit. That's not the appearance I have. But our actions tell who we are. It's a picture of who we are. I think this is a really good picture of life as a proverb. If the anger of the ruler rises against you, and I could really say a ruler, a boss, a spouse, a coworker, a friend, a family member, or fill in the blank, what's our natural reaction? I even think I saw a story this week about road rage. People get so angry, and then another person gets angry, and then it at times ends in absolutely terrible tragedy. Our natural person is, when we're confronted with anger, we want to dish that anger right back. But it says calmness will lay great offenses to rest. And I think there's some real practical wisdom in that. Put that maybe in your memory banks the next time you're confronted with anger. Think about displaying calmness as a reaction to it. Now, this next section of 3, I want to kind of look at on a couple of angles. And he goes on, he says here, there's an evil that I've seen under the sun, as it were an error proceeding from the ruler. Okay? Then he says, folly is set in many high places, and the rich sit in a low place. And I have seen slaves on horses, and princes walking on the ground like slaves. Now, just because someone is either in a high place, a king, an elected officer, a rich person, we might think often when we think of the rich, or we think of an elected person, person in a high place, that they're always going to have wisdom. But the Bible shows us throughout time that is simply not the case. Nor is it even the case with the wealthy person. So it's not just how you are born. A person is born into poverty. A person is born into riches. But it's also what you can do. So things are not just, whatever position you're in is not the way that things have to stay. I don't know. I got to thinking about this one a little bit. It made me curious. So I tried to look up some stories here, modern day stories. I bet everyone here would not know who Leonardo del Vecchio is. I had not ever heard that name before. But he grew up in extreme poverty. He was so poor His mother couldn't afford to feed him or take care of him, so she was forced to put him in an orphanage. I mean, you talk about as poor or as since I've seen slaves on horses, think of how bad that is. And then he, as a young person, worked in a factory. He even lost his finger. And one of the factories, though, he worked on was a place that made eyeglasses. Well, long story short, today he is a billionaire many times over. And I don't know if anyone out there owns any of these because they're very fancy. But he owns Ray-Ban and Oakley sunglasses. He was born as a so-called slave into poverty, but he's riding on a mini horse, if you will, today. Of course, we can see actually many cases on the flip side. Probably know Bernie Madoff had the greatest criminal Ponzi scheme of stocks that we've ever seen, and he was a billionaire. But today he's in poverty, in jail, where he will spend the rest of his life. Elizabeth Holmes is another billionaire, graced the cover of many magazines as one of the greatest female entrepreneurs, but is also herself today in poverty and in prison. So there are princes that can walk like slaves as well. That no matter how high up we are, it can be lost. And no matter how low we are, our circumstances can change. But that's just kind of a mental image, the way he displays the proverb there. Now, where we're going to finish today, about halfway through the chapter, is a series of warnings. And I'm not going to talk about each one individually, but let's just read them collectively and think about what they have in common. He who digs a pit will fall into it. So again, these have mental imagery. A serpent will bite him who breaks through a wall. He who quarries stones is hurt by them, and he who splits logs is endangered by them. If the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength. But wisdom helps one to succeed. If the serpent bites before it's charmed, there's no advantage to the charmer. We got a serpent here and we got a serpent here as well. Now, we might think about these in different ways, but one thing I've thought about is this is how we can often, we think about why have I fallen into trouble, because these are all about people bit by a serpent, having trouble, you're using a dull blade, you're working hard, you're not getting anything accomplished, you're endangered by the logs you split, you dig a pit and fall into it. It's about how we often bring trouble on ourselves. We say, why has this happened to me? Well, there's a place of chance, there's different things, but there's often, we've dug our own pit. Ever heard that phrase? You dug your own pit? You played with a snake, you tried to charm it, and you got bit. So, if you find yourself in a pit, you find yourself where things aren't working out so well for you, maybe just say, did I dig this myself? Have I put myself in this set of circumstances? So just in conclusion today, again, a little bit of a break from the heaviness. We saw a lot of individual statements here. I think some of them are funny. Made me think of, if you like memes, I sometimes like memes. They can be funny. They can convey a truth. There's kind of a universality to them that we can relate to. And while they're funny, they also often have a much deeper meaning, and they can have a great truth about life. Maybe, you laughed at some. You say, well, that's a funny image. That's a funny picture. The perfume on the garbage. But then there's truth in it, too. I think in many cases we might say, well, I can see other people in that. That's definitely somebody I know, whether a famous person or maybe just a person in your life. You might say, they should definitely be thinking about that. But perhaps in our laughter, and while it is a little lighter, maybe some of these are things that you could relate to. and maybe some of these things you could apply to your life as well. There's great funniness in a meme or even in something from Benjamin Franklin. But these are Proverbs for the Bible, so they speak truth to us. And so even in these Proverbs, there is wisdom for us to take and to learn from. So for myself, I welcomed a little bit of a break this week, and we'll continue to look at some Proverbs next week as well.